Hello and welcome to the Young Film Academy podcast, the essential podcast for teenagers looking to find their way into the creative industries. Welcome, Larry Jones. How's it going?
Hello. Very well, thank you. It's good to be here. Very, very excited about today's episode.
Yes, me too. I've got to say I'm Dan, but you guys probably know that.
I'll place your name at the end of every sentence now, Dan, just so that everyone else knows.
Thanks, Larry. That would be great if you could do that, Larry. Today we're going to be talking with Raphaela, who's a phenomenal young filmmaker who has just shot a film on a virtual production stage, which is really cool. And we're going to find out a bit about what that is when we chat with her. For those that want to watch some more, there's a great behind the scenes on the Mandalorian. If you wanted to sort of almost pause this podcast, I'd never recommend stopping listening.
Don't turn it off.
Don't turn it off. Just pause it, and you can go watch the Mandalorian virtual production video. It's like 10 minutes long. It's really cool, and you'll visually be able to see what the thing that we're talking about. And we're going to actually hear firsthand sort of what it's like shooting a film on it, which I think is an amazing aspiration for young filmmakers, but also something that is becoming more and more of a reality, and people are starting to do this in their own homes, which is crazy. What did you have in your own home, Larry? What could you do back in the day?
Just so much rubbish on terrible phones that didn't even have cameras at first. I mean, I'm a dinosaur now, Dan. So it's all changed. But I think the idea of virtual production, especially, as you said, finding out a bit more about what it is, but what the possibilities are. If you know that you're going to write a script, for virtual production, the possibilities are kind of endless, which is so exciting. It's changing things.
100%. Did you have I was talking about making things on old dinosaur phones. Do you remember that if you wanted a ringtone, you'd have to find up the notes online, and you'd have to create a new ringtone and program the notes in at the right tempo, and you'd create a Blink-182 song.
Of course.
It had to be that.
It's just, when it rings, then everyone knows. It's a status thing, isn't it? Everyone knows that polyphonic tone is just
100%. Whoa, that's sick, bro. And then that was before you could buy ringtones, basically. You had to make
and sometimes that would be totally unrecognizable, which is just embarrassing, isn't it? When that goes on.
Yeah, people would be like, what is that? And you'd be like, it's all the small things. And they're like, no, it's not.
Yeah. Very glad that's a thing in the past.
Yes, absolutely. Because technology has taken us way further forward. And to talk with us about storytelling with this modern technology that is way more sophisticated than programming into your phone, it's Raphaela. Welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
Hi, all good so far? Yeah, busy but good.
Absolutely. You are in the middle of post-production, is that right? On this project? Very cool. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the project, how it came about. It might be a nice way to sort of, get us into it.
It's a very funny story because it was an actress who came to a casting of mine, I think 4 years ago. And I ended up
someone that didn't get a role, sorry.
Yeah, here we go, yeah.
Okay.
So she didn't get the role because I had two other actresses who had really good chemistry with each other. But I messaged her and I was like, you kind of were too good for the casting. Can we stay in touch? I really want to work with you. So we did. We went for a coffee. And then 2 years later, I think it was just after the start of the pandemic, I get a call from her. And she's like, look, I've got this script. I think you might like it. So she sent it to me and it was the draft. It's this story that's set in the future where we imagine that the world is overpopulated and there's really strict population control. So there's only a number of babies that can be born each year. And the way this is decided is it's a TV lottery. So two women get into this TV lottery where the prize is motherhood.
Wow.
And we find out that actually one of them doesn't want to be a mother. So it's a very, very crazy story, very futuristic. And I thought that was it totally intrigued me.
Yeah, man. You can. The funny thing is, I was literally imagining okay, we're in the future. Channel 4 would be all over that, wouldn't they? They'd be like, oh, yeah. Or is it ITV? Whoever does Love Island would be like, yeah, let's broadcast that. That'd be great.
It's like Britain's next top mother, right?
Yeah. Because it always feels it's less about the those shows always feel less about the the actual thing than they do about the drama. Do you know what I mean? It's always like what's gonna actually make people poke people emotionally with a stick. Yeah. I had that revelation with Love Is Blind recently. It's like they're not trying to prove Love Is Blind at all, are they? They're just trying to put some people in a room and poke them, I think. But anyway, so you've got these two women. Okay, great, amazing. So I mean, that just really already shows the value of connections and sort of going through the process and maybe when you do see something in someone, let them know as well, because you never know where it could lead to. And being wrong for a project doesn't mean they're not good enough.
Absolutely. Like I always say, I have my little booklet of people I would love to work with, and it's just in the back of my head somewhere. Where I you never know. At one point, you'll have a project, and you're like, "Oh, this person."
Yes, yeah, and as it turns out, you never know when that person might be like, "Oh, that person," especially if you do, you go for that coffee, you have that chat with them. And it could eventually obviously lead somewhere, which is very cool. So at what point did you find out it was a virtual production, or was that part of the package?
So that came really late. Like our original idea was to find a TV studio, like in a pre-existing TV studio that we could maybe, get in the evening after they finish shooting and just like use it for cheap, because I mean, we did have some budget, but it was still pretty low. And most of these TV show studios, they get taken down again after they finish filming. So it was like, we did not find anything. Normal TV studios cost you like 4K a day. We were like, we can't afford 4K a day just for the studio and then build the entire stage. So after about a year of searching for studios, we had this idea. So what if we did it all digitally? Green screen for us was also quite expensive, and I personally just didn't really want to be stuck in a green screen studio for 2 days.
Did you try and mask it? Were you like, oh, I've just heard green screen's naff, were you just like, I do not want to be in there?
I was perfectly honest. Like with VFX, you can either do great or you can turn out really bad. And I was like, this for me is too high risk of shooting the entire thing in green screen, especially since I haven't done green screen yet, and it's like this does not feel right. So I was like, what about virtual production? And then we first found a studio in Warsaw, but then that didn't work out. And we ended up finding garden studios, and they were super, super helpful, very open to having this young team of people who have never worked in virtual production, and basically letting us train and use their studio for a good price and shoot this film. And they were absolutely lovely.
Amazing. Did you have to convince them much that you weren't gonna, burn the place down?
It was quite a few annoying phone calls, like, "Can we please use your studio? Can we please use your studio?" No, in the end, I think they just really found the story so different to what is usually done in shorts that they were like, "Okay, you can have it."
It's super cool. I mean, shorts are tricky anyway, aren't they? Because I always find it's that confusing question of what is a short meant to be, right? Is it actually a mini feature? Is it a poem in sort of video form? Because there's not really like a status quo for short stories as much. Like short novels sometimes do odd things, I suppose.
I am still trying to figure that question out. As with shorts, and it's also such a little amount of time, and like trying to build up something. I'm really looking forward to doing my first feature where I just get a bit more time to
But even young listeners and the sort of the people that we teach on sort of Young Film Academy courses, they have an almost better understanding of what a feature narrative and arc is, right? Like, because that's what we consume on the more regular basis, and even more so now, obviously with TV all the time. That's an even bigger character arc that takes place even over a longer period. But character arcs in sort of shorter form, I think you can pitch it too big, right? And then it feels off and you're not sure why. And the reality is sometimes it's just because you've only spent 10 minutes with this person. To have them go through like a huge revelation sometimes doesn't work as well, right?
I think with shorts, it's very much about simplicity. This is something I think I've slowly been learning through my shorts, because I like to go big with my shorts. And then now I'm like, maybe I should just try and find the simplicity. or at least if my last short before this one, it was literally just about the girl who wants to play the violin. And that had like this kind of simple thing that just kind of ran it through. So yeah, I think shorts can also just be a scene. It can be something poetic. I think in the end, you can just explore and learn from them. It's probably do whatever you want, basically. See if it works and learn from it. Yeah.
Just don't do a feature. Don't do a mini feature, maybe. Or those are like, I don't know. That's one of the ones that maybe you can get wrong the most. I think with over pitching it and stuff. So was there an element of development for this, for this film? What was the script like when you saw it? And did you have to do much changing to try and reduce its scope? Because obviously it sounds very ambitious, which is obviously up your street.
Yeah, that's basically why the actress thought of me, because I was always I'm overly ambitious. No, but we spent so much time finding funding and finding the studios that we did have kind of 2 years to tinker about with the script. And I think there was a point where also this question of, what is it really about came in. It's like, yes, it's about motherhood and it's about social pressures and it's about this TV show, but what's at the heart of it? And we were like, at the heart of it, it's actually just a friendship between two women that gets into trouble because they have different beliefs on a topic. That's really at the heart of the story. And I think once we found that, it was easier to then work on the script and lead it to that one point where hopefully it's going to make sense. We'll see when the film is done, but that was the idea.
And did you have a sense when you were kind of pitching for funding as to whether you talked there about kind of the basic essence of what the film is, but then also the ambitious side of it? Do you kind of pitch with a mixture of those two things, or do some people want to know about the big ideas and the dream for it? And, what's the kind of balance between that when you're looking for funding?
Yeah, definitely both. I think I went for both. With the pitch, I usually tend to be quite strong on like the political, like I say political, but I'm like social political aspects. With here, it was like the pressure of motherhood and how women often do that towards each other. It's not really like a bigger thing. It's just how women put that pressure on each other. So I pushed quite a bit on that for the pitch because I knew it was like socially relevant and all those things. We were also a super diverse team, both in front and behind the camera. So that was quite nice. Like the writer, she's in her 40s, the actress was in her 30s, and I myself, I'm in my 20s. So we have like 3 different generations of women all speaking out about this topic of motherhood. So these were all the things that I kind of brought into the pitch to sell the project, along with the narrative and the friendship and these things. And then, of course, the visuals. Yeah.
Super cool. Super cool. So obviously you get this thing, you managed to find a place that's willing to let you in and stuff. Obviously, I know you talked about how with you didn't want to do green screen because it can turn out badly. But obviously, we've only really seen virtual productions used on something like The Mandalorian and Star Wars that most people are aware of anyway. And obviously that goes well for Disney. That's fine. Is there an element of fear that maybe it won't go well for us? Or
of course.
Did you have a test shoot day at all to play around? Gotcha.
Yeah. So the DOP, she went to do quite like a few of these virtual production masterclasses. I think it was with Ari or something, just to kind of get a bit of an idea of how it works. And then we had like a test shoot about a month before we shot. Yeah. Where we were able to like get a feel for how things work. I think one of the biggest, not issues, but like difficulties was that on a set like The Mandalorian, that LED wall is 280 degrees, so it's almost a full circle. So you can pretty much move the camera wherever, and you can nicely block your scenes just like you would on a normal set. Now our wall was like 90 degrees, so
wow.
it was pretty big, but still it was also tiny. So that of course massively limits how you move the camera. Like you could not do like a 180 shot wouldn't be possible because you would film off the wall. You can cheat it a little bit if you have a lot of time, but usually on shorts you don't. And then also when you do a shot reverse shot, so if you have 2 characters talking to each other, instead of what you normally do, which is moving the camera, you move characters and the set design and everything, and you leave the camera in the same but really it hurts your brain trying to do that. It works. It needs a lot of preparation. But the benefit is you shoot it and it's all there. You see the background. It looks really cool on camera. The camera is linked. You can do lots of cool stuff. You can, do things that wouldn't be physically possible. But it does need a bit of extra preparation. And also what I think we didn't quite realize is that if we would be switching everything up all the time, we constantly have to change the light setup. So then what you end up doing is you shoot the character in one direction, like throughout the whole film, and then you switch and you shoot the other actor. And that, for acting purposes, is not great. But we made it work, and it's there are benefits to it. For this film, it worked. I think it was a really good option for this film. We were able to create this TV studio just like we wanted it, and
And so that's all created in advance, is it, in terms of the stuff that you're seeing in the background? Just kind of talk us through, in simple terms, how that process works.
So basically, first we had to come up with what do we want the stage to look like. Because we were always planning on shooting something pre-existing. This was suddenly like a completely new freedom, and it was almost a bit weird it felt a bit like being God. It was like, so if we can do anything, what do we do? So we came up with this whole concept of trying to take inspiration from being inside a room and making that look like a stage. And with that concept, I then discussed it with our stage designers, and then of course with the Unreal Engine operator and creator. And then in that team, we kind of came up with something that we all really liked. Yeah. But that was about a 2-month process, 2.5 months. Yeah.
Amazing. So it's still you're going through the same process, I suppose, and that is happening, before the shoot, as it normally would do, because even when you shoot on green screen, you have to be aware of what those backgrounds are going to be, so you can light it, right?
Indeed.
And then I suppose the DOP, do they get involved in this process as well? So your director of photography, are they looking at, okay, well, we can have a light source from within the background within it, because that must be a relationship between them and the Unreal Engine, as it were.
There were a lot of questions as to where are our light origins, what motivates the light, why is the light there, and that were of course a lot of discussion with my DOP. I like to involve her quite a bit in the whole creation of the stage. She had some great ideas. There is also the thing with the light, that the light, actual physical light, is not allowed to hit the LED wall, because otherwise you ruin the illusion. So there was a lot about, in terms of the stage light, what can we do, what can't we do, and that was just always in discussion. DOP, stage designers, Unreal Engine person. Yeah.
Amazing. And once you get all those things and you get to set, what is that process like of working in a virtual production? Because so my understanding is it comes from the computer, which is running the Unreal Engine software, and then that is being lit. Essentially, it's a big TV screen, right, behind the actors, but it's so bright that it registers in camera as a real thing. Is that sort of?
Yeah. So basically, camera is calibrated and it's live rendering. That's how it works, I believe. And
when you say live rendering, as in it's responding to where the camera is, or?
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, the Unreal Engine is like a 360 environment. And the camera basically knows where the digital camera is, and then knows what it would see. And the screen, the LED wall actually slightly adjusts to where the camera is looking based on where that digital camera is. So what we would do is in this 360 degree, we would tell the Unreal operator, okay, we need the north side. And then he would place the camera into that environment with the lens we were using and the approximate distance we were from the characters. And then that would be on the LED wall. So it was just a lot of communicating on set, just like the DOP communicates with the gaffer with okay, we need that light. They would also communicate with the Unreal operator saying, okay, we need north side, or we need south side, or, whatever it is that you need on the LED wall.
Interesting.
Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, for one, obviously it's adding in this whole new component, right? So that's an extra technicality to be processing on set. does that put more strain on you as the director or on the first AD who's trying to run the show? Do you know, like, did you feel that extra slowness maybe? I assume that does slow everything down.
It does slow you down a bit. Like on my last short, I quite confidently shot 18 slates a day. And that was it with kids and animals, so we still made that work. Whereas here, 18 slates were a stretch, just because you need a little bit of extra time with the choreography, with everything that's going on. If you have a dolly shot, that needs extra time. But very much it's almost like being on a normal set. It just does take a little bit longer, depending on what you're doing. Obviously, if you're shooting a commercial that's quite simple in terms of camera and acting, then you might do much more.
Because it's a different kind of pressure, right? Because it's almost like the lower the budget, the faster you have to shoot. So the pressure comes in that you're like, oh my god, we don't have it. Like run. Like we got to go faster. And you sometimes, like, I know on one or two of my indies, we were hitting like 30 slates a day because we had to, right?
Yeah.
And that is like mental 1,000 miles an hour pressure. But then in here, it's like, yes, you've got the pressure, but it's the pressure whilst also moving at what comparatively is almost like snail speed, but there's so many other things happening. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's pressure, but you must be sitting in the middle of it, watching it just taking ages between takes, I suppose.
To be honest, I think it's very much down to the AD, the DOP, and the director prepping and prepping again, so that once we're on set, we know what we're doing. Yeah. And then there's just certain shots that take longer than others. And I mean, we knew before we went in that our shot list was a bit of a stretch. So I went in knowing that what would happen is that I'd be on set changing plans.
Okay.
As we started, still hoping I would manage, but then we had a makeup delay, and at that point I was like, okay, we are redoing the shot as we go along. So, it wasn't even a virtual production. It was actually something completely normal that got us off the rails. But it happens, and filmmaking is problem solving. I think it's one of the best sentences. Filmmaking is problem solving. So you just kind of, you go along, and I think it's very similar to doing a normal shoot. It's just adding that extra person operating the Unreal Engine environment and camera. But other than that,
and what is that Unreal Engine term? What does that refer to?
Oh, so Unreal Engine, it's actually a game engine, and you can create entire 3D models digitally. I think you can even create metahumans now. It's an incredibly amazing tool. I personally don't know how to actually work it, but there is a lot of tutorials, and I have heard, I think it's free, and I think it's quite easy to get into. Like, there's so many tutorials, and I've heard directors actually using it to like block out scenes and to like like almost like doing storyboards, but digitally. So there's like a bunch of things you can do with it. I think there's a YouTube channel called Film Riot that has recently been exploring the option of virtual production for indie filmmakers and how you can get into it yourself. Which is obviously slightly different than what we did, where we just kind of found a team who was able to do it. But it's absolutely an option of trying to make it work yourself. I've seen like home setups with green screen and Unreal Engine, and then they combine that. So there's lots of stuff you can do with it.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's amazing how the world's changing like that from when we all started out. It's so different already.
It's the democratization now happening with other things, right? First, it was like computers. Okay, now you don't need a Mavola, I think they were called, which are like the old school film editing systems, not even software, where the film reel would run through it and it would physically cut the film and stitch it together for you. So you like edited practically, and then obviously it went on to high-end computers, and now it's on everyone's computer. You can access iMovie, which is actually really good software, way better than like Windows Movie Maker from back in the day. And then obviously same things that will happen with cameras. You can get really cinematic cameras now for cheap. And green screen moved from being a studio thing to something you can set up in your garage. And I can just see virtual production. You'll be able to buy a screen at some point that won't be frightfully expensive that you can set up in your garage.
Absolutely. There's already people doing it in their garage. Loads. And I think Unreal Engine, it will be a very, very interesting tool for directors as we move forward.
Can I just ask a question about the actors' process then, Raphaela, in this film? So as you said, you kind of shot everything in one direction, and then so somebody would be doing all of their lines kind of in a block at once, and then you'd be turning around on the other person and, well, not even turning around, replacing them with the other person and doing everything. And how did you kind of manage that for the actors? Because obviously that's quite a challenge, isn't it? Especially in terms of kind of, do you do rehearsals so that they knew how the other actor was going to kind of plot their journey through the film? How did you sort of manage that element?
So, of course, I would have loved to do rehearsals, but usually the producer then goes like, there's no money for it. And you're like,
of course.
So I did talk through it with the actors. We did have one stunt rehearsal because there was a slap in the film, spoiler, and the actress had never hit anyone, so she went to have a little bit of slap training, which was quite fun and
very exciting and practical, your real life as well, which is great.
Yeah, so we did do a little bit, but there was no like proper playing it through everything. And in the end, I decided that I wouldn't do 7 pages of script one way and then switch and do 7 pages of, also because my choreography was maybe a little bit too intense, but anyway. So I split this, basically the whole film is one long scene, but I split it up in 6 different scenes and we would go scene by scene. So that way the actor wouldn't have to remember 7 pages of lines, but just the block that we were doing in one direction. It was still really, really hard on the actors because we were switching from scenes and I mean, they completely lost all of their sense of surrounding. And I just warned them. I told them a week before, I was like, look, I'm going to place you and I'm going to tell you to whom actor you're going to act and just forget everything else because you're going to like lose track anyway. It's madness. And they were very happy to just trust me to place them and then they would act in whichever direction. I just have to really keep an eye on the eye lines and make sure that I don't mess up because it's my job not to mess up that. But it was harsh on the actors.
Yeah, it's kind of really interesting, I think, because often a part of your process as an actor is getting onto the set and feeling like you're really in that world and feeling kind of there's tangible things around you that you can touch and, you know, you get a real sense of place, don't you, when you arrive on a set. And so I kind of wondered how that differed in this sense because you can't interact as much with the environment. Was there anything that kind of came up that you weren't expecting from the actors?
I mean, they did a fantastic job considering, you know, what they had to do. I mean, especially one of them, she comes from a television background, actually. And I mean, she was just fantastic. Every take is I can use. I was like, wow. Seriously, I'm so amazed. And I think the cool thing about virtual production is that you're not just in a green room. You did actually get a sense of where you are. And you could also take a little sneak peek at the monitor and you saw what the stage would look like. And we had like all the practical lights there. And so I think there was a real sense of being on that stage. Even though the background kept changing and it was kind of like, where the hell are we? But you were still on the stage. So there was some aspect of knowing where you are. Yeah.
Did you have more time with the actors in this kind of environment because there was more things that had happened to, you know, more things going on in the background? Did that mean you had more time with the actors to maybe tweak things, to try things out, try some adjustments?
I always try to fill that downtime of like waiting until the lights were ready to kind of run through the scene and do a bit of rehearsal and stuff. But because we're on a low budget and it's just like, okay, we got to get those slates in. Actually, during the takes, I would have loved to just like, if there was a good take, it meant moving on. There was no time for doing let's try this just to have the option. And of course, I would have loved to do that. And you do see in some of the takes, you notice where the actors are almost there. But if you could have done one more take or could have spent a little more time on it, and well, it just happens, but it works. And in the end, your job is to make a film. You just have, by the end of the 2 days, you need to have a film.
Yeah.
That's, even though we would sometimes love to play around.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, it's like being in a sort of a sandbox, really, isn't it? It's with some buckets that are shaped like castles and stuff. You can just sort of
you're in a sandbox. But somebody told you to build a 3-meter tall sand castle in an hour. That's the feeling.
Yeah, that's quite a lot of pressure. When it sort of all goes like, you're not sure where the eyeliner is meant to be, or were there ever any moments where you suddenly like, oh my god, I've got no idea? And if so, so you always had a good sort of understanding of.
I made sure I knew
what
the hell I was doing because of the prep.
Because you don't, because obviously you've told the actors to trust you. You don't want them to suddenly see that you've not got it, I suppose.
I mean, sure, there were moments where I was like, wait, are we on the right side? Are we like, is she looking camera right or camera left? But I'd grab my iPad, I would check my like floor plans. I mean, I had storyboards as well, but floor plans are usually my go-to thing to check eye lines and stuff. I was like, she's looking camera right, let's go. There was, for me, it was much more of a case of like having to rewrite the shot list as we were going because of time. And like you realized, I can't do this shot, which means that shot won't edit. So I need to find something else for these two shots. So it was more like that was what made my mind kind of reel the whole time, more so than stuff like eye lines, because that I was prepped. Yeah.
Gotcha. I mean, the whole thing, the whole scale of it is so impressive and so cool. And I mean, it sounds dreamy, but it also sounds like a nightmare as well, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I see that actually hits it. Like in one way, it was amazing. Like I'm so glad I did this because the experience was so impressive. Like you really feel like you've learned so many new skills in those 2 days, and your directing kind of was really put to the test. But at the same time, it was also a nightmare in terms of like time and getting through everything, and the pressure of knowing you need to deliver. But yeah, it was both, and I'm really glad I did it. And I would, I'm not opposed to shooting in virtual production again. I would just plan in a bit more time next time.
100%. Would you try and do like a shorter film? I suppose there's an element where you sort of.
No, I would just go for more time. Because I think there is something really, like the first day the crew is getting to know each other. The second day they kind of start rolling, but like if you hit like day 5, that's when you're really in the groove of things and stuff just kind of runs more smoothly. And if you're only shooting 2 days, you never get to that point. And I think that's just, I don't know, it doesn't fulfill me as much as being able to have a little bit of a longer shoot. Yeah.
Sure. That makes sense. So what's next for you? So obviously you've done the virtual production. Are you working on, you're developing a feature, right?
Yeah. I'm developing a feature that is very much just about 2 characters in a normal world.
Simplicity. That's the way, right?
No, really, I was after this shoot, I was like, right, I think I'm ready to just do 2 characters in a room. I'm not doing that. The feature is bigger, but I wanted to really do something character driven, do something emotional, and just really hone in on that visual poesy of doing something quite simple, but then adding layers to it. So that's my feature. I'm also working, obviously post-production on this short film, on the draft. And I just got a new project in 2 days ago, which I don't think I'm allowed to talk about yet. But that might be something for an episode in a future podcast.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Super cool. Super cool. So one thing we like to do on this podcast is sort of delve in a little bit into your journey as when you were younger, and sort of how that led you to where you are now, right? Because our listeners are all sort of teenagers. So I just wondered sort of what you were doing in your sort of early teens that led you to here, or maybe seemed irrelevant at the time. Maybe it's stuff that you weren't. Maybe you weren't writing stories. You were just sort of I don't know, throwing lemons at people, but it's all.
Somebody throws lemons at you, make lemonade.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I wasn't throwing lemons at people. I might have been selling lemonade to get a bit of extra pocket money,
Very nice.
Learning how to get funding, basically.
Was that going into films? Were you sort of
no,
raising?
Not at all. So let's say I'm 14, 15. I had I never went to the cinema actually as a child, or very rarely did I go to cinema.
Wow.
Maybe I don't know. I think Twilight might have been my first cinema experience. Which,
what an experience to choose! I rate that film quite highly.
I know.
Yeah, I think it's good. I was like swooning. I think a little bit.
Don't knock it, guys. Guilty pleasures are the best.
Yeah.
that when I was 13 and all my friends were going to watch Twilight. So
absolutely,
anyway,
they were.
No, I wasn't really not into cinema. It was nothing really I knew that much about. But what I would be doing was being outside in the garden, playing, basically putting on role plays.
Nice.
And I recently found my old iPod Nano. I don't know if you remember these. You could basically listen to music on it, but they also had one of the first cameras. And I found old videos, and I was like, oh god, I was directing when I was 8. Basically, I was just shooing my friends around, running after them with my iPod. So turns out I was interested in cinema when I was really young. I just wasn't aware of it. I really like to tell stories, and that's what I so for me the closest thing was to write a book, which I just could not do. I don't know. I had trouble writing books because it was too big. And then I found screenplays, and they are written differently than books are. And there is kind of a very simple formula to get into them, and I loved it. And
I had that as well. It's like the epiphany of oh my god, I don't have to think about the most artistic way of writing this thing. If I want a character to enter a room, I just write they enter the room.
Yeah.
And then it's and then you keep going.
Or you're here. And that's it. And I loved that kind of formula to it. I was like, oh, I can actually tell stories now. So by that time, I was, I think, 17, 18. I was planning on studying medicine. And then I was like, so, Mom, I feel like I should do a gap year. And, I'll just try film for 6 months. Is that okay? And I think 3 days into those 6 months, I was like, right, Mom, I'm not coming home. I'm doing film now. And thankfully, they supported me in that. And that's kind of my journey of getting into film, but it was all very, very late. I was dead set on doing veterinary or medicine until I was 18. And then I discovered film.
That's not late. That's 18. That's
yeah, but I'm talking to Dan, and he's he has his DVD collection, and I don't know, he's been interested in cinema since ever. So, in that comparison, yeah,
I do have one of my first behind the scenes books. It's like a Jurassic Park behind the scenes, which is from my childhood, which was very, very exciting. But yeah, no, I do have that. But as you're saying, it's it's the intrinsic sort of story thing that you were already doing. That shows, you had a passion for storytelling from an early age, and it just, takes a while to work out how best to showcase that world, I guess.
Exactly.
Or showcase the world that are in your head. So what was that 6 months like? What were you doing that made you go, okay, I can do this?
So I did a 6-month course at Met Film School, and at the end, we were supposed to shoot 2 days on a short. And I had this crazy idea of I want to go and do a fantasy film because, that's my favorite genre. I wanted to go and do Lord of the Rings. At 18, after 6 months of filmmaking, knowing absolutely nothing. But I managed to get some funding, and I flew 30 people to the Swiss Alps, and we shot a fantasy film. And my school didn't want to pay the DOP for 3 days, so I was like, fine, I'll pay him myself, and I'm shooting 3 days, and you don't get to say anything because I'm paying. So I shot for 3 days. We traveled, I think, 5 days, 1 day there, shot 3 days, 1 day back. And we had this absolutely crazy experience in the Alps, and my parents saw that, and they expected me to come with a tripod, a camera, and maybe 2 other people. They did not expect me to come with a van of equipment, 30 people, and, costumes and whatever. So at that point, they were like, okay, she's doing this. That was those 6 months, and they gave me an overview of what it is, all the different departments of film. And then I'm just somebody who went for it. I just wanted to find out what it learning by doing, really. Yeah. The school can teach you the basics, but then it's go out and do it.
They say, don't they, that most people think they're directors and then sort of find another path for themselves. So oh, actually, I'm a DOP, or oh, actually, I'm just a writer. I say just a writer. You know what I mean? I'm not a director. Yeah, I know. It's sacrilege. But I wondered, for you, was there ever a process of thinking, oh no, I am a director, or did you ever think, oh, maybe this role's a specialization for me, or was it just you just always had a clear idea of the stories you wanted to tell, perhaps?
Yeah. I tried a bit of everything. I did quite enjoy sound. My VFX tutor desperately tried to get me into VFX. I also enjoyed editing a bit. And I think this enjoying everything was what kind of made me want to write and direct, because I can learn about everything and then I can pull all these different departments together. And I just really enjoyed this teamwork and being able to create this atmosphere on set where it feels like everyone is pulling on the same rope and everyone's working towards the same goal. And I think that's really beautiful, being able to create that. And yeah, I think that's what made me want to direct.
Yeah.
And did you ever do any performance, Raphaela? I'm interested. Did you ever do any school plays? Did you have any relationship with theatre? Like, what was your kind of first experience of all that?
I mean, I think I was in a choir at some point. I can't sing for the life of me. Like, I'm a really bad singer. So I would usually be the one like standing in the back somewhere and not really, self-confident enough to go into the spotlight. So I'd just be hiding somewhere. Or, then being behind the scenes. And I think my first experience on putting on a play was this very terrible experience in high school where we had a music teacher who was doing some kind of higher education and she wanted to put on a musical. It was an absolute disaster. 2 weeks before the show, I still hadn't had any role cast and I think there wasn't a script.
Wow.
And at that point, I was like, I'm not going to go on stage unless there's something you can actually perform. So I think that was my first try of putting on something. We made it work. The teacher was, if I ever have to play hate, well. But yeah, it was very much for me being like behind the camera. I wasn't really on stage. And I only recently started doing acting lessons because I just think working with the actors, it is such a big field. Like, there are a million ways of working with actors and there are a million different actors, and learning all of that I found really interesting, and it's done wonders for my self-confidence. I think I really like directors, go and do acting classes. It will help you. Yeah.
100%. That stuff always sort of gets like left to the wayside. Do you know what I mean? Like we were talking a little bit before we got on the podcast about performance and how that often is secondary to some filmmakers that come through it because they're sort of in love with the technical side of things. When as a director, you're the one person that's dealing with the actors. You're the one person that's actually shaping those performances and that scene with them. And I don't know. I think having a theatre background is sometimes very helpful, or at least having some theatre experience and stuff. And as you're saying, getting lessons. And so did you not have any, this is the first time you sort of had, I suppose, training within the actor sphere of things, and you found that really useful? And I know Larry's probably got some thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been somebody who's more interested in the arc of the character. Like, I come mostly from like a writing background, so I was interested in the arc of the character. Yeah, the character wants, the flaws, all of that, and that's kind of where I came from with my directing as well. Like, if somebody asks me what lens do you use, I'm like, go ask my DOP. Like, technicalities over there, I would be like, I need this mood, this feeling. This is what the characters are going to go through. So I was very much from like a writing POV. Which has also made me very close to kind of the acting side of things. And we did have a bit of acting training in like Med Film School and stuff. So I was always closer to that part, to the characters, the story arcs, the performances, the acting. And I would literally have my DOP at my side, and together we would, figure out all the technicalities of how it's going to look. And now I am also trying to kind of catch up on stuff like lenses, and I went to the Kubrick exhibition and I was like, oh wow, okay, so that's the level of detail I should go into. But yeah, I've always been closer to the acting side, and I was talking to a very experienced DOP who graded my last short film. It's a proper professional post company in Switzerland, and he was like, you know what, I don't like directors who try and tell me which lens to use. Like, go and worry about your acting performances, and then that'll make sure it will look good. And I quite like that. I was like, okay, this is a way I can work.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? Like, you can make something look beautiful and the lighting's right and everything's perfect, and then if the actor doesn't hit that beat or doesn't hit that emotional kind of point in the story, you know, the whole thing can fall flat. And I think that's not to kind of put pressure on actors. Obviously, we all feel the pressure of it when we're in that situation, but I think it's more about just realizing, you know, that is a part of the whole, but it's a really essential part in terms of, otherwise you get into the edit, don't you? You look at the performances and you, like you said earlier, you know, it's really hard when you're short on time, but you go, oh, they were so close, but they didn't quite get it. And it's about kind of finding that shared language, I think, is a really important part of it. And like you said, you know, going for lessons and just understanding it from the actor's point of view, even if you don't want to act and you don't find the act of it enjoyable, it's about kind of understanding how actors talk about things and how you can talk to them about something that's going to spark, you know, a thought or a different change of direction in what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, Larry, I'm sure you have said this to the podcast listeners already, but verbs. Use verbs. Don't use like be sad or be angry. Use verbs, you know,
definitely
make her afraid of you.
Are the best.
You know, yeah. And I think it's so simple advice. It's really hard to do on set when you're under time pressure, but try and use verbs. It makes
you think about what you want, and then you have to sort of almost work backwards sometimes, don't you? Yeah. But we're very it's results orientated directing is the phrase that's commonly used to you know, to describe that type of directing, essentially, where you're like, be angry, be sad. It's like, that's not very useful, because what
also chip in there, like they always tell you don't result direct, but they never tell you what to do instead.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. And that's something that you learn, isn't it? Yeah. And I think there's something really important as well. I had a director once on a commercial that I did who used percentages. So he said, oh, could you be 25% more bashful, 35% less intense? And I was like, oh, wow, my head is going to fall off. It was just, I was like, I don't even know what this means. I can't add up to 100. Like, I'm in serious trouble here because I just can't give this guy what he wants, because I don't know.
Just give them their nonsense back to them, Larry. just be like, oh, sorry, you didn't like that. Well, that was actually 36% more bashful.
Well, exactly. So I did feel a little bit like that at one point. But I think another really good thing, so I think using verbs is a really good piece of advice. And I also think focusing on the impact that you want that actor or character to have on the other person is a really big thing. Like, in terms of self-consciousness for actors on set, when everything's pointing at them and everybody's looking at them expecting results, I think for me, I always find it helpful to talk to actors about the impact they're having and trying to actively do something to the other person to make them do something, so that they're not kind of self-consciously thinking, oh my gosh, what's my face doing? What am I thinking, you know?
Yeah, that gets into Meisner a bit, like making sure there is, you know, the back and forth between the characters and they're actually reacting to one another. Like, also actors love to anticipate the sentence the other actor is going to say, and it's like trying to get out of that expecting something mode and to really get into the reaction. Like, you're not acting, you're reacting. Who said that?
Yeah.
I think that's a very common saying as well. But
so many people. But my training was Meisner as an actor. That's where I came from, the background. And I think and Sanford Meisner is the practitioner that we're talking about there. And he wrote a really amazing book. And there's some great kind of classes that you can go to if you look up the Meisner technique. It's a really interesting way of working, and it's about kind of not pre-planning what you're going to do, and just, as you said, you know, reacting to the other actor in the moment. And I think it's a really useful thing for screen, especially because it allows each take to have different individualities to it as well, because somebody does something slightly different and you respond differently. And I think rather than, you know, otherwise you end up with kind of 4 takes of the same thing that's very good, but you haven't got any variation when you look back on it in the edit. So I think it's a really interesting technique to use to work with actors. Because it lives, doesn't it? It feels alive. And like you said, it feels like the first time they've ever said these words to each other, which is, you know, part of the point, isn't it?
Yeah. I also like to say, like, when you're young, my first film I made with very experienced actors. Not like big names or anything, but they've had a fair share of experience, and it's really, really helpful. Like, they can teach you how to direct. And if you say something stupid, they can save you. So
the whole I think, as you're both saying, you know, experience is really useful on set. I think the more you direct, the more you work with actors, the better prepared you're going to be to have these kind of conversations and get these more organic performances, because that's what you want. You just don't want something feeling rigid or forced. You can tell we are really good as humans at telling when someone's not being truthful. We might not be able to tell what the truth is, but we can spot when someone doesn't really mean something. It's why acting is really hard. It's because actually it's not about lying really well. It's actually about giving an honest and truthful performance. So by having an action that you can give your actors to play, so the example I used earlier, obviously like be angry. No. How about you, rather than be angry, make the other person in the scene cry? Do you know what I mean? Like that's an action you can actually play against. And then, I know what that's going to look like now. I get a feeling for that. But what comes out, we don't quite know what it's going to be. And that's going to give someone, something more to play off against as well. And that's just sort of one example of how you can sort of twist things around and do it more, using a verb, an action to something to play against the other character. That is gonna help you and your movies as well, because ultimately that's what we want, isn't it?
Indeed. I mean, in the end, it's all about emotion. It's about giving the viewer an emotional experience, and the acting is a huge part of that. It's also the tone of your film, what the pictures look like, what do the pictures tell you, and that includes anything that's in the picture. And I think that's just always the thing to think about is the emotions. What do I want to achieve with the film, with the scene, with this bit of dialogue?
Yeah. 100%. Well, this has been amazing. We've got to round things up, but with a final question, which we ask all of our guests, which is, what advice would you give to your teenage self, or to your younger self? What would be your one bit of advice?
Oh, that's difficult. I mean, in general, I always say do it, but then, I mean, I myself kind of did, so I can't really give that advice to myself. But in general, I'm somebody just do it, just start. I think that's the biggest thing. Start, and then don't be afraid to make mistakes.
100%.
Maybe if I had to say something to myself, it would be enjoy the process. Don't always go for the goal at the end, but it's really the process. Yeah.
Amazing. I agree with that.
Me too.
Wholeheartedly.
And in all aspects of life, not just filmmaking. Don't be afraid to
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Raphaela. This has been amazing to chat with you and learn about your experiences of virtual production, and also discussing what really matters in a story as well. So thank you.
I hope it all made sense. I mean, it was my first time doing virtual production, so maybe in the future I will be like, oh, what was I saying? But yeah,
no, it did.
Anyone interested in virtual production, there are so many resources online now, so don't be afraid to just dive in and check it out. And
Superb. Thank you so much. Yeah, do your Googling. Film Riot, I think you mentioned, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good resource anyway for all kind of young filmmakers.
That was super cool. I loved hearing about, it's almost like the technology is one thing, but it always comes back to the characters and the story,
It's so interesting, isn't it? I was just thinking that, because I was thinking, really, it makes ideas limitless, doesn't it? In terms of kind of the world that you can go to, the things that you can build. You can think about a story set on the moon, but ultimately, if the characters aren't doing anything interesting, or there isn't a relationship between them, or a dilemma, or an incident that happens, all of those things are still the basic kind of principles of screenwriting, aren't they? And kind of hooking an audience and everything. You can have all of the kind of fancy worlds and amazing visual effects and stuff, but ultimately at the heart of everything is, as Raphaela was saying, kind of emotion and character and a journey.
Yeah, it's the reason why, I think you can have people that go and see, say, like a Marvel film, which are like really actually analyze that film. That is visually unbelievable, almost all of those films. Technically astounding. Yet people still come out of them and sometimes go, it was all right.
Yeah.
It was all right. Like, the level of craft and detail, the amount of people it requires to make one of those films, and not in just because it's big, but because of the technical knowledge of people that are specialists in their disciplines just to be able to pull something like that off is a complete magic trick, really. And then people still come out, it's fine.
Well, it's funny because it's sort of not about that, though, isn't it? And I know I don't want to say that in terms of kind of obviously the hours and hours that everybody spends tweaking those things and making them perfect. But I think actually the point is, if it doesn't hit you in the gut or in the heart or in the head, you're not gonna be moved by it. You're not gonna find it memorable. And if you are, then all those aspects lift it and create absolute magic. But it's has to work in tandem, doesn't it, with the basics in terms of kind of relationships, characters, journeys, dilemmas, overcoming obstacles, all of those things. That's really what lies at the heart of it, no matter how kind of supernatural or fantastical those obstacles and emotions and stuff are.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the key, isn't it? It's like the audience's reception of a film is actually always character. So it's funny that when people first start getting into film, they get obsessed with the technicalities, because when those people actually started to love film, so before they started to then fall in love with the technicalities, it was always the character and the story that would affect you. And it's always that people come away feeling, joyous or not so much after watching a film. It's those things. And then somewhere along the way that gets lost, because these things should be tools rather than the focus, I suppose.
Definitely. I think that's a really good way of looking at it. I was going to say, do you ever get that feeling, when you go and see a film that's kind of, I don't know what it is, but I suppose it's the cinema experience as opposed to watching something at home, but you leave the cinema and you kind of feel like you're in that world still. So it could be like, after I saw No Time to Die, the James Bond film, I just on the way home, I was like, oh, I'm actually driving a bit too fast. Because I was like, I just feel like I'm in the film, and I saw, I think it's about imagination, isn't it? But I think a really good film helps you get carried away even when you leave the cinema.
100%. The immediate film that jumped into my mind was Avatar.
Yeah.
Holy moly! I'm actually well excited for Avatar 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, whatever. Yeah, whatever he's doing, because whatever anyone says, those films were, I think, very effective character stories as well. I think there's been a lot of retrospective dislike of those films, just being like, or that film that is it was a little bit predictable. It's basically just Pocahontas. Yes, it is basically just Pocahontas.
but if it ain't broke,
yeah,
fix it.
And it works,
Yeah.
If you actually grabbed a camera and tried to reshoot Pocahontas, there's no guarantee that it's actually emotionally going to work. All those characters and all those performances and all those beats are perfectly delivered to make you care about these characters and for them to be effective as a story. And then it's set on the planet Pandora.
What more could you want?
What more could you want?
But that's why I think animation is, some of the most emotional films I've seen recently have been animations, and we shouldn't, why would we be connecting to robots that are hand drawn by humans that have emotions when we know that machines don't feel things actually? But it's about buying into story, isn't it, and character, and about the million different facial expressions they use for the different characters in the films. But I think that's partly why that works so well, is because there is always such a strong foundation of character and emotion when you've got animation, because you're trying to bring something to life. You have to really think in depth about how you tell that story.
100%. And you'll listen to animators or even VFX supervisors. So the VFX supervisors being the people that are essentially at the head of department for VFX. So they're the ones in charge of deciding how each shot is going to be done. And you still get them working. There's a similar role for animations as well. Because a lot of live action stuff is also just 3D stuff these days. 90% of Marvel films are CGI.
No, don't ruin the illusion.
No, I know.
The planet film it.
Even the streets of New York. But they'll tell you their job is to serve the story. First and foremost, there's a great series on YouTube called VFX Artists React, and in the latest episodes, so the episodes from the last couple of years, they've actually got really cool VFX artists and VFX supervisors that worked on these films to come on board as well. So these guys normally would make content for YouTube, and they make their own really cool content. like story stuff as well on their website, but they analyze then Hollywood films, and they started getting these Hollywood people to come on and explain the process behind some of the shots. And the amount of times you hear these people say, we're serving the story. And they do it as well with stunts as well, actually. They get stunt people on, the people that like choreograph the fights in, say, like Black Panther or in Captain America, all sorts of cool films. And they will say, our fight is serving the story and we're trying to get character across in this fight,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the higher up you go, I think the more focused you need to be on what it is that matters in the stories.
It's at the heart of it all, isn't it?
100%. And we've got a question today. So this is the most relevant question we had come in for our virtual production, because no one asked specifically about virtual production, but that's because no one knows about them enough yet.
Exactly. They'll come flooding in after this.
Yeah, 100%. This question is from Damien, and Damien says, where can I learn/study VFX and animation as a teenager? Which he's sort of flagging that issue. I mean, no school is teaching you as a teenager, this is how you become a 3D animator in movies. But to be honest, Raphaela sort of talked about this, didn't she, Larry?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's just so many resources out there now. This isn't an area of my speciality, so I wouldn't kind of want to make up an answer that doesn't feel kind of authentic. But I mean, in terms of the amount of kind of self-tutoring you can do because of all the amazing resources on YouTube, all of the amazing, like you said, picking apart scenes in films and looking at how that's put together and the people and the roles behind that. And, and the software that, like you said, Dan, in terms of like what we have available to us now at, free, often doing free trial versions of software and just playing around and creating something really simple. I worked on quite a few stop motion films when I was at university, and stop motion is just such I mean, I don't have the patience for it on a long-term basis, because obviously you only end up shooting less than a minute of stuff a day if you're lucky. But I think stop motion, I found a really, really interesting way, and you can do it at home, can't you? You can animate anything. I think that's the point as well. You can just take an inanimate object and think about how you would make it live and breathe and tell a story with it on camera. But I think stop motion for me was a really interesting way of dissecting in really, really small pieces what each image looks like and how you get from one place to another as well. So I found that really helpful. But I mean, I grew up in the 90s, Dan. It's a long time ago now. So you've probably got better advice for the kids.
Oh, no. But I think you're hitting on it, which is just, as a teenager, there aren't schools and classes. I mean, we do like a module at summer camp.
Yeah.
On like, where like students can choose a specialization for a day. And we do, or for like half a day, and there is one on green screen, where you learn the basics of VFX and compositing. So that is the closest I think you can get to with that, which is really cool. And you learn how to like light things for backgrounds and how to bring those together in the computer. But the reality is, this is going to require time and commitment from your end if you want to get into something like this. And there are so many tutorials online, and that's going to be your avenue. You can listen to people speak, like on the VFX Artist React thing that I talked about, but then you can also watch tutorials on this is how you do this very specific thing on this piece of software. Look up tutorials for specific software, so like 3ds Max, Autodesk Maya, Cinema 4D, and Unreal Engine as well. Obviously, we're talking about today. There are so many tutorials specifically for those programs, and just start at the bottom and and work your way up. And just by doing, you are learning. And keep pushing yourself. Keep trying to make the thing that's just out of your reach. And eventually, before you know it, you'll be so far up a ladder, you won't know how to get back down.
Maybe sometimes literally.
Literally, yeah.
Be careful on ladders, though, seriously.
Yeah, no, 100%. Make sure someone is holding it for you.
No, that's great advice. And I think you're absolutely right. I think aiming for something slightly out of your, you've got a wacky idea for a film. You've got a really interesting plot twist or a way that a character gets killed or, something cool that you're thinking about, and finding the most inventive way to do that rather than the most obvious, I think. And you can, the beautiful thing with digital film is that you can try it as many times as you want, as many times as you can before you get that shot perfect.
100%. Anyway, we will see you guys soon next time. This has been wonderful. Thank you, Larry, for a wonderful time. And thanks to Raphaela. And we will see you guys on the next episode next week. And don't forget to send your questions to podcast@youngfilmacademy.co.uk. I was getting higher and higher.
That was really high. I liked it.
That was really high, wasn't it? Yeah. Which is how you will feel, high and elated, after listening to an episode of our podcast and next week's one. So stay tuned.